Hello, dear students of class 10. This is your teacher back with another lesson titled The Hack Driver by Sinclair Lewis. Let me remind you that this is the second last lesson from term 2. Harry Sinclair Lewis was an American novelist, short story writer and playwright. He was born on 7th February 1885 in Minnesota, United States of America. He became the first writer from the United States to receive the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1930. He died on January 10th, 1951 in Rome, Italy. So in the beginning of the story, we are introduced to a young junior assistant clerk who has just completed his graduation in honors from a magnificent law college. But instead of being given legal briefs, he was asked to serve summons to people who lived in dirty and shady corners of the city. Sometimes he even used to get beaten up by those big bullies whom he had to hand over the summons to. This was a part of city life which he had started to hate along with his job. So one day, he was ordered to go to a country town called New Merlion to serve a summons to Oliver Lutkins. Being from a small town himself and also fed up with the city life, the thought of having to go to another countryside excited him in a way. However, on reaching New Merlion and seeing the muddy street and shops spread out everywhere, his feelings, or rather his excitement, changed to despair. He saw a man of about 40 who looked very friendly. He had red cheeks and was dirtily dressed. But his appealing smile was something that looked endearing. Later, he introduced himself as Bill, the hack driver. The narrator inquired about Oliver Lutkins, and Bill, the hack driver, told him that he had seen Mr. Lutkins an hour ago. Bill, being a hack driver, agreed to take the narrator around the town and look for Mr. Lutkins, since he knew very well where Lutkins would be. They settled the fare at $2 per hour and off they went. Bill then spoke about Lutkins and said that Lutkins was a fellow hard to catch. He was good at deceiving people and never paid anyone a cent. He even said that Lutkins owed him 50 cents, which he had won on a poker game. He suggested the narrator to remain out of sight while he approached people to ask for Lutkins. He felt that if Lutkins sees him in his fancy attire, he would definitely get away. Hearing all this, the narrator liked Bill for his openness and his help. He of course knew that he would have to pay Bill for the fare, but he liked him for his friendly nature, and so he confided in him by stating that Oliver Lutkins was a witness to a case and that he had been summoned before, but he never bothered to come and refused to be a witness. His one presence would help solve the case, which is why he had come to Mullion to hand over the summons in person. Bill listened with interest and then they both headed to Fritz. On reaching there, the owner looked at the narrator who was standing behind Bill and hesitatingly said that he was there a while ago but left for Gustav's for a shave. They then drove to Gustav, and while Bill entered the shop and inquired from not just the Swede but 2 customers, the narrator waited outside the main door. The Swede angrily said that he hadn't seen him, nor was he interested in seeing him. He instead said that in case Bill sees him, to collect $35 he owed him and to hand it over to him. One of the customers said that he had seen Lutkins walking down the main street. As they climbed on the hack, Bill concluded that since Lutkins had spent or drained his credit at Gustav's, he had probably gone to Gray's for a shave. There too, they were told that he had left 5 minutes back, probably for the pool room. At the pool room, it appeared that he had just bought a packet of cigarettes and gone out. And once again, they pursued or followed him but could not get hold of him. By this time, the narrator was hungry and asked Bill to take him to a good restaurant. He also offered him free lunch. However, Bill said that his wife would be waiting and instead suggested that they go home, make his wife prepare lunch for them for $50 and head towards the Wade's Hill and enjoy the view while they eat. He also felt that food at the restaurant was greasy and unhealthy. The narrator pondered for a while about Bill and his helpful nature. Of course, he would have to pay him, and he did pay for 6 hours including the lunch. But the narrator was satisfied. After all, he had a great company. Plus, the firm would bear all his expense. As they reached the hilltop and enjoyed the view of the green pastures and creek, Bill entertained him by telling about the place. Bill talked about the minister's wife who sang the loudest in church when she was most in debt. He commented on college boys in fancy clothes and about the lawyer whose wife could never succeed in getting him to put on a collar and a tie on the same day. The narrator enjoyed listening to Bill and realized that he liked New Mullion better than his own city. Bill didn't know much about colleges and cities, but he had traveled around a lot of country and had had a lot of jobs. Looking at him and hearing him speak strengthened the narrator. After lunch, they resumed their search for Lutkins. Bill cornered a friend of his who guessed that Lutkins had probably headed to his mother's farm 3 miles north. And once again they started out, and Bill now talked about Lutkins' mother. He said that once he was made to carry a trunk and she nearly took off his skin because he didn't carry it well. He said that she was about 9 feet tall and 4 feet thick and quick as a cat, and she sure could speak. He then asked the narrator to let him handle her himself. They drove into a poor farm and met an enormous but cheerful old lady. Bill approached her bravely and introduced himself to her as Bill Magnuson, the carter and hackman. He also introduced the narrator as a representative of the court in the city and added that they had a legal right to search her house for Lutkins. This old lady went to the kitchen and they followed her. She seized a hot iron from an old-fashioned stove and cried out that they could search provided they didn't mind getting burnt. The two men, Bill and the narrator, ran out and left this woman laughing hysterically. The narrator found her action disrespectful. However, they searched her 1.5-storied house but did not find Lutkins there either. Since it was time for his train to head back to the city, they drove to the station. The narrator did worry little over his failure to find Lutkins, but along with it, he was thinking of the place and Bill. He found Bill to be nice along with neighbors such as Fritz and Gustavs. He pictured himself settled in this town and seemed excited for having had found a treasure and discovered a new life for himself. He did not think about Lutkins, but his office and boss did. They were so upset and his chief was really pissed at him. The narrator was ordered to go back to Mullion, but with a man who had earlier worked for Lutkins. He felt bad as he realized that he would not be able to loaf around with Bill like he had done earlier. When the train arrived, he saw Bill with Lutkins' mother and they were talking and laughing. The narrator did get amused. From the train steps, he pointed at Bill and told his companion that Bill was a fine man and that he had spent his day with him looking for Lutkins. His companion was surprised, for he told the narrator that Bill was Lutkins. The narrator felt really bad, and after he had served the summons to him, Lutkins and his mother begged him to accompany them to a neighbor's house for a cup of tea. Lutkins also said that they were the only ones in town who missed seeing him yesterday. The narrator felt bad and hurt since Lutkins had fooled him into believing that he was someone else. And with this, we come to the end of our story. This sure was an amusing tale that captures the view of traditional city folk and country bumpkins. The educated lawyer, believing he is above his position, gets schooled by the country fellow who is quicker and smarter. Hence, we should learn the moral of the story, and that is never trust anyone without knowing them. Otherwise, you could end up being fooled. So stay home, be safe, and stay positive and happy.